Welcome to A Flash of Beauty, the podcast, an audio experience dedicated to the further exploration of Bigfoot and the people Bigfoot has revealed itself to. What started as a documentary of personal narrative encounter stories and expert testimony has now shifted into a deeper inquiry into the forever changed lives of those that have witnessed firsthand this hidden truth. My name is Tobe Johnson, co-producer of Flash of Beauty, Bigfoot Revealed. Join me along with the crew and creators of this doc, Director Brett Eichenberger, producer Jill Remensnyder, and cinematographer Michael Ferry, as we go back into the trees to sit down once again with each guest in search of the truth, no matter how strange. All right, we're back with A Flash of Beauty with our good friends here at the show, Jill, Brett, and Mike, the crew of Flash of Beauty. Hello, everybody.
Hey, what's happening, Tobe?
Hey, I'm good. Things are going to be structured a little bit different today. We don't have a typical guest, except I guess the four of us here. We're guests amongst ourselves. And once in a while, you just kind of have to take a step back and look at where you are as far as the space we're in here, not only as podcasting, but as, filmmakers like the crew we have online here. So I thought it would be good to do an introspection of sorts, but in all honesty, things are up in the air for me personally with a housing move, a studio move. And rather than be distracted from the eventual landing out here in the Olympic Peninsula at a place called Agnew, Washington, underneath Hurricane Ridge, it looks like that will be the permanent new facility. That's what's going on personally. I do have some stories I'll get into about some interesting Bigfoot stuff as it relates to this move. But I just wanted to catch up with all you guys because it's been about 2 weeks or so. I've cracked open a bottle of Belgian White, which is on the house here. You can't beat that price. Blue Moon Belgian White. Jill, you got a libation in your hand perhaps too. Tell us a little bit about what's going on in Jill's life. Even though I said I was going to start with you, Mike, but Jill was giving me that look like she had something to say. So Jill, what's going on?
For it.
I have absolutely nothing
Mike's
critical.
thunder,
Yeah, stealing Mike's thunder. I do have a libation. I would like to recommend the not so vintage, the Kirkland brand Cabernet that comes in a box. No, so let's take a step back where we are with things. For me, so we're trying to get everything into our distributor. Originally, they wanted everything like the second week of February. So we missed that deadline. And then after we had the screening in Forks, over Memorial Day weekend, we're like, oh man, we have a whole month to get them everything they need, piece of cake. And then life happened. So I've really kind of removed myself creatively from the documentary, from the sequel, because I've been dealing with all the paperwork. There's this whole other side of what I do on these projects that is not beautiful cinematography or music or engaging and heartwarming. It is going through all the paperwork and checking boxes and making sure we have everything covered from a legal aspect. So I've been
real quick, Your Honor, just to explain to the folks that process just a little bit, because walking into this, it's kind of fascinating some of the landmines you can walk into as a filmmaker and not necessarily know it. For example, all these images that show up in these documentaries, there has to be a permission slip. More than just someone's word, there has to be a document signed, and you have to make sure it's on, has legal standing. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I mean, in addition to, of course, we have release forms for everyone who appears on camera. If we use anyone's footage or audio, we have to have permission that outlines the parameters of how we use it. And I'm sure there's a lot of people who skirt by and don't do this, but because Brett, Mike, and I, our background is in like narrative filmmaking, but also corporate commercials and industrials, where there is so much paperwork and dotting I's, crossing T's. I just wouldn't feel right if I wasn't doing my due diligence. So not only that, but like with the music, you have to do all the licensing for it. And yeah, like stock footage and whatnot. So sometimes when when you've watched like the first film, you'll see a lot of like nature shots or sceneries or cutaways to footage to help illustrate what the speaker is talking about. You have to track down and get permission for that. And because Brett's a stickler for how things appear, and because I hate paperwork, he and Mike have been filming the majority of all the B-roll. So hats off to them, because a lot of people wouldn't do that. But for example, like in the segment where Diane Stocking's talking about like where are the bones and how fast things decompose, we tracked down that deer decomposing on YouTube, contacted the content creator who made that, and just little things like that. So gain permission. So there's that.
Well, Jill, real quick, are people
yes.
more often generous with their footage? For example, they worked hard to get that film footage, but yet, not everything has a price tag on it, especially B-roll that you find on the internet. Are people more often just like, hey, thanks for asking. Absolutely. If you want to donate, you can. Is that the usual attitude? What's it usually like?
Usually from our experience, I mean, the Bigfoot community is really interesting because it's interesting. So a lot of people just give so generously and freely. Daryl Adams comes to mind. He's always like in my Facebook Messenger inbox. Daryl's always sending me new stuff. Like, have you heard this? Have you seen this?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So you got people like Daryl, and so many others who are like, use whatever you need. But then you have people who have been paid by network shows and whatnot, who understand that they can monetize this and can make money. And there's some negotiation in there. And honestly, all the people that we've paid for footage have been really not just flexible, but really supportive and like, yeah, let's make this work. The only time the negotiations didn't work out as planned was for the Patty footage. And to be fair, with the Patterson family, they were willing to negotiate a lot and be very flexible, but I was like, well, we're indie filmmakers, we're paying for this out of pocket, just kind of scrapping by. And they're like okay.
I think it would have been equal to about 80% of our entire budget for our movie.
Yeah.
And that was them coming down, and they have every right to do that, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, so look, at the end of the day, I mean, people have been extremely generous. Sometimes it doesn't work out, and sometimes that works in our favor. So, right. I mean, I get it.
They may not know that's not just regular stock, because you see it everywhere. You just assume, I saw it on YouTube. I can slap in it. You can't just slap in it. There's only one frame, right? The frame in the doc, frame 352, where she turns and looks. That's part of the public domain, right, Brett?
Yeah. Yep, that's part of public domain. You can use that as you need to. And it's a whole crazy drawn out story as to how that became part of the public domain. and it's really kind of an interesting thing. But what's great about our wonderful United States of America is they have very stringent, very tough copyright laws, and that protects artists, that protects the generators of copyrights, and that's great, and that's what we want. And so we want people to respect our copyrights, and we want to respect other people's copyrights. But
yeah,
same time too, what's great about it is we're all looking for the truth. Whether it's a person that had their phone on them and their camera on them, they snapped a shot, or it's us making, putting all of that footage together. We all want the same thing, and that's to get the truth out there. So people have been very, very cool.
So, Jill, you've been caught up in the procedural element of creating a documentary, checking all the boxes, dotting every I. Mike, do you just do Bigfoot documentaries as the premier cinematographer for this doc, or are you balancing other things going on? Tell people more.
No, if I could just shoot Bigfoot, I would. That would be the perfect situation because it's become a passion. But for instance, I'm a freelancer, so right now work is somewhat slow as far as shooting goes. There's some stuff in the works, so there's planning that needs to go into stuff. But God, not very exciting. Right now, I'm Mr. Mom and taking kids to invention camp and watching a 2-year-old. So that's been keeping me busy. But other than that, I've really just been kind of reviewing what Brett and Jill have been putting together. And it's been a blast just to revisit all this stuff and see it kind of come together. It is like a puzzle. There is still some stuff that needs to be shot. I think we still got a little bit of B-roll to shoot, but like for instance, we're trying to fit in a couple more interviews into it. And so we went out and shot some stuff with an experiencer. We're just trying to fit in those shots into the storyline. And it's just awesome seeing it come together. And I cannot wait for everybody to see it. It's amazing, and we're just so proud of it. Yeah.
I also just want to say that Mike Ferry is the Hoyt van Hoytema of the Bigfoot cinematography world.
That's high praise, Brett.
It's true. It's so true. So true. If you don't know who that is, you will when you see the new Christopher Nolan film Oppenheimer.
Oh, nice. Okay.
The cinematographer on that film and on many other films of note. So I just want to.
Yeah, I know. A cinematographer, I love all of his work. But yeah, we're just trying to give these movies, a very unique look compared to the rest of the paranormal content that's out there. We think this deserves to be something beautiful and something cinematic, and so far, all the stories lend themselves to those kind of visuals.
Brett, you just had an interview with Jimmy Church of Fade to Black. The first words out of his mouth within the first 5 minutes were high praise to not only the documentary, but to the beauty of the documentary, flashes of beauty. And that seems to come up time and time again. In fact, he even called it, I think he said it's hard to call this just a documentary. He goes, I've seen so many documentaries. This is not just a documentary. He said, did he say it's more of a cinema style?
Yeah.
Which, I mean, is a great thing, coming from someone like him. He's seen a lot. And he's been in a lot of documentaries, and they don't look like the other documentaries that are out there. Not saying anything against those. It just because of the fact that you guys, well, just like you were saying, Jill, that B-roll footage adds up. I mean, it's an accumulative effect. And for those who haven't seen part 2, this accumulative effect of going to grab this cinematic B-roll footage from all over America, and even outside of America at a point. Is that true? Did you guys go outside the States to grab B-roll?
Yet.
Mars, perhaps?
I was just about to say, we have been to outer space.
Yes.
Though we were not conscious.
Don't we have a shot? We have a couple shots from Vancouver, BC, don't we?
We have one that a friend of mine grabbed in Victoria, BC. But We will eventually, I think, at somewhere down the line, do a Canadian,
Mhm.
some Canadian filming. We need to. I would love to do the
Right.
awesome documentary someday, but
But for
we have
those who
stack of
haven't
ideas.
heard this interview, Brett, on Fade to Black, you need to do it because it really is an intensive 2 hour discussion where you guys you could go way down the rabbit hole away from Bigfoot and you come back to Bigfoot periodically, but talk about that interview.
Oh man, Jimmy Church was awesome, and I've been a fan of his since he started guest hosting on Coast to Coast AM, which really is what has been fueling my paranormal desires and
Mhm.
needs for 30 years. So that was really cool. And apparently he had been talking about the movie on the show, and I wasn't aware of that. And he was a big fan, and he'd seen it multiple times. And so that was, I mean, it was huge compliments. And it's just the kind of reaction that we're really working very hard to get, because it helps folks out there to take the subject matter seriously. And I want to be very clear. I don't believe that other documentaries don't take the subject matter seriously, and I'm not trying to separate us from anybody else. We're just doing it a little bit differently. There needs to be all sorts of forms of storytelling. So I just want to say that. But and we love all the stuff that we take a look at and watch and stuff like that. But we noticed, I mean, very very early on that there was an open door for series filmmakers to be working on these stories. And there's a lot of folks out there that are doing documentaries that are more of a confined. They don't have the resources to go outside of their region or their area, and so they end up telling these great stories that happen in that particular area, whether it's the Midwest, the South, whatever. And we wanted to do something that encompassed all of it. We wanted something that somebody who is a skeptic to sit back and watch and go, I may not believe in Bigfoot. This is what they're thinking in the first 15 minutes, but wow, this is beautiful. This is a celebration of nature. And then pretty soon, an hour into it, they're going, wait a minute, this is kind of starting to add up to something that I can sink my teeth into. Our philosophy has always been from the very beginning is that, the Bigfoot community is a community that we love, but we also want to get outside of the Bigfoot community as much as possible. We want to have something that breaks through. And, audiences nowadays have a lot to choose from. And so you have to figure out how to stick out. And so people talk about it, because that's really when we're a self-funded documentary and we don't have a lot of marketing money or advertising money, we need to do something that people will talk about. That's what helps us perpetrate and gets the film out there. So it's by design in a lot of ways, that we really take our time and do it right.
Yeah, it's a form of poetry on film, and there's enough abstraction in that B-roll that it feels like intensive art taking place, but under the undercurrent of it is this really kind of eerie sexiness going on, which I'm a fan of. I didn't shoot any of it, so I'm not the sexy one here. It's Mike. Mike's the sexy cinematographer.
No, that's the best word. That's the best words I've ever heard to describe it. It's great.
I've heard other people say that too. They said it's a haunting. Part 2 is very haunting. And I said, yeah, but it's still kind of sexy. And they agreed. Yeah.
That's what we're going for.
That's Elvira. That's Elvira. Eerily sexy.
That's right. Yes.
Is that what that is?
The sequel is the Elvira Bigfoot documentary.
It's
all hanging out. It's all hanging out.
Yeah. Took a hard right turn there.
We need to do your eyebrows, Mike, and get those nice arched eyebrows. Hey, I was going to ask you, Mike, in relationship to what Jill talked about, because I kind of heard a little bit of Brett and Jill's story as it relates to maybe family in the beginning giving you a hard time about talking about this or doing a film about it, and now their folks have come full circle and are mentioning it on the golf course. What happened with you? Was there initial fallout being a Bigfoot doc dude?
Um, yeah, to a certain extent. I mean, um, I'm surrounded by skeptics. I've got Brett and Jill on my side, and I've always kind of been one to look at the unanswered and the mysterious and be really fascinated by that. That's always been a part of what I wanted to do with my filmmaking, is kind of tell an amazing tale and amazing stories about ordinary people. That's kind of what I think we've done. But yeah, my family was skeptical. My wife is skeptical. My wife is very scientific. She's a doctor, and she's kind of by the book science, and um, but very understanding and very supportive of what I get behind. But watching her kind of transformation in the last two movies has been really fun, because even in the first movie, skeptical of what she was going to see, and was blown away by the testimony and the stories, and just began to rethink things a little bit, not just pushing it to the side and filing it away, but really absorbing it and thinking about it. And since the second movie hasn't come out yet, but Brett and Jill have shown me rough cuts, and and my wife has gotten to see some of those rough cuts, and it's blown her mind. I mean, the second movie is going to be incredible, and I think Lydia's is seeing that and making some questions of her own. She was texting me from work the other day, just saying, like, I can't stop. I can't stop thinking about some of the stories that were in the documentary. It just kind of sticks with you. And I totally agree. It's sticking with me just watching it, and it's something that just kind of hangs on your mind. It's hard to stop thinking about it. She's got to commute from. We live in Vancouver, Washington, and she's got to drive I-5 all the way to Longview to where her clinic is at. And there's been some few sightings on that drive, apparently, and she's constantly scanning the tree line, just waiting for something to happen. So for her to, really embrace it and just think about it, and just, is really, I think it's a testament to the movie. It's a testament to, our storytelling. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, she's an academic. She's probably sharing it with other academic types around the water cooler, and they'll be impressed by, her attitude towards the subject matter, because I'm sure she's cautiously thinking about the reality of this and how it's affected you. But, Jill, you have the best stories as it relates to how your mother and father have really turned into baby squatchers.
Oh, how they've gone from mild disgust and
Disgust,
shame,
right?
and
Disgust
shame
yeah.
to being my mom approaching strangers in doctors' offices and grocery stores.
We got to put a GoPro on top of her bonnet.
Excuse me, sir, but I couldn't help to notice your Sasquatch t-shirt.
She doesn't do that.
Beautiful impersonation.
She says, she leans in and says, "So, have you had a sighting?" And then it's like a PTSD recall. Like, this guy in the my dad had a doctor's appointment at Providence up here in Portland. And she's in the waiting room, and some guy came in, sat down, and he's wearing his some Bigfoot t-shirt. And she's like, "So, have you had a sighting?" And he looks up at her and stares at her. And he starts doing a recall of, "It was deer season, 1984. The wind was at my back." Doing this whole recall of what happened. And just, yeah. And then so my mom, not knowing how to process the information she received, she's like, would you like my daughter's phone number? Which was weird. She just handed my number out. Yeah, so they're on board.
Which is how Jill and I met, by the way.
Right.
Yeah.
Just handed me your phone number.
No, we met in rehab. Just kidding.
There is a Bigfoot rehab.
I'm not supposed to talk about that, but yeah.
Somewhere in Longview.
Yeah, I mean,
and that's how you met Mike at the clinic. He was picking his wife up. Right.
Yeah.
Methadone
Exactly.
brings out the best in people.
Mike was smuggling in the goods, man. Like, this is a guy that we could do business with.
Right.
So it's going to be really interesting to see how my parents respond to the sequel. And I've been kind of preparing them for some of the weirdness. And, you know, it goes full circle back to like the house that I grew up in was haunted as all get out. And to the point where when I was a kid and growing up would try to talk to my family about it, I was like, they're gaslighting me. Like, they are just messing with my head. You know, what is going on? And then when I finally like really talked to them about it, they're like, oh, we had no idea. What? I was like, so they're kind of open to weirdness and strange things, and they've had to deal with me a lot, so that's prepared them. So
do you have brothers and sisters that are following into this too? Because that seems like the easiest place to access it. Mike, you have kids, but what about siblings? Are they razzing you guys? I don't have any. I'm an only child, if you can't tell. But what about you guys?
I mean, my older brother is he's a skeptic of like everything in general. But although he did call me on my birthday last week and was like, you know, if you got on the Joe Rogan show.
It hasn't changed his mind yet.
To be determined. We'll see. I mean, his kids, we took our niece to the Owl Moon Lab down to the woods and stuff. And she was like, oh, whoa, you know, she was really blown away. But she's been brought up in a skeptical home. So she questions everything, which is good. Mm-hmm. Jury's out on my nephew, if he's on board or not. But we'll see. I think the sequel is gonna cause an interesting family discussion at Thanksgiving dinner.
Well, are we gonna do a Remensnyder family screening?
Oh yeah, because they're coming up in a couple weeks or in a few weeks. So
oh wow. Does that mean go up into the laboratory and turn out the lights and watch it, kind of deal, like a private screening?
Well,
the living room. I mean,
it'll probably become officially ostracized at that point with the sequel, because the first one was like, okay, we can wrap our head around a flesh and blood Bigfoot. You know, we were shocked that there's more than one of them. We thought it was just one Bigfoot. And now that we know that there's more of them, okay, that was weird. But now you throw this at us. You throw this cloaking, disappearing thing at. Now we know you guys are crazy. So,
you think it may go down like that? Because I know some of the witnesses. You know some of the witnesses. They're so damn compelling. I mean, we just got done watching some footage. These are really well done stories that just lead you to believe that these people cannot be manufacturing this out of whole cloth. And there's so how do you think they'll process that?
Well, like I said, I've been it's been like a soft disclosure, conditioning my parents for the weirdness. And that's probably that's a discussion for a different show. We'll wait till we do the Tara Harris interview
Okay.
to get into all that. But yeah, so my parents are like, okay, Jill's got some stuff going on, so
Mhm.
we're gonna dive into her little world.
Oh, yeah.
Going into the
Well,
sequel.
I know I've said too much at my house.
Oh.
I don't think my mother or my stepfather listen to the podcast. Um, but sometimes I just give them, you got to take it easy on these blue pilled people. You can't just, sometimes I just give them a full data dump to see what they do.
Mm-hmm.
And I start with the end of the story, and I don't give them any time to warm up, to the fact that there's more than one. I just go right to the craziest stuff. And oh my gosh, it caused a little bit of friction. It was an odd moment of, great. I think it scared him. The implications of some of it is really freaky to family because they care about you. I mean, the good ones, right? And I have a son, and so yeah, the implications of a place, you know, in the second part we talk about many places, but these window areas where they come more often, like Arla lives in, Arla Williams, I'm talking about. We do talk to her. That's no secret. But these places exist all over the planet. And that's also, in my opinion, it seems to be where the evidence is gathering steam, is that these window areas, not only where Sasquatch is, also have these other coalescent things that happen. That's what we get in a part 2. But when you tell family this and you start implicating your interest and focusing in on trying to solve the Scooby-Doo mystery as a full-time gig, it's just like, well, what are you doing with your life? And, that's something that I tried to delicately put in the first draft of the Al Moon Lab, is that at the end of this, all you really have are shadows. So you have to watch where your own shadow is all the time. Is your shadow becoming too dark? Are you focusing in on evidence instead of experience? And so it's very difficult to give this kind of information to people that live in this matrix blue pill world when you've been gobbling red pills like crazy for so long. And yeah, it did cause some weird friction momentarily, to the point where I had to apologize. Just to be frank, I actually had to humble myself because there was really no other way out of a family dynamic than to just say, hey, I spoke out of turn. Sorry about that. And, I don't know. Has anybody else had to deal with that? Is that just me? Like, do you get personally involved with this enough to where you find yourself maybe going to a war that you shouldn't be dying on that hill for? No?
I don't think so. I think what's interesting about it is, when you're dealing with the older people, I think youthful people are open to it. And my brother and sister are totally open to it, and excited about it. My mom has been super supportive and open to it, but initial reaction was, oh, this is creepy, this is crazy. And my father, who passed 20 some odd years ago, I know he would have been all about it because he was into the paranormal and stuff as well. But sometimes I think you run into folks who have they're whether it's religious beliefs, spiritual beliefs that are rooted very, 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 very deep, and it's generational. And I was brought up in a house like that too, and I still hold those values and whatnot. But there is a subconscious fear about all of these things, and what if they are real? What does that mean? What does that mean for humanity and for us and people? And the thing about it is that what we're hoping to do with a film like Flash of Beauty is to get beyond this monster demon garbage, because it's not, by all indications, this is not what's happening. This is not that's kind of a medieval way of looking at things, in my personal opinion. The Dark Ages, whatever, if it was bad, it was demonic, or if it was, Look at Hieronymus Bosch's paintings, for goodness sakes. And so there's still, humans, I think, if they don't understand something, they'll say it's bad or they fear it. You fear what you don't understand. And so it all depends on the approach, and I think this is true for anybody listening too. If they have family members or friends or something that they're like, why are you going out squatching again this week? And I think you just have to say, look, this is what I've experienced. This is my journey. And I believe that there truly is something out there. I think that it's important to keep looking for the truth. It's significant. It's extremely significant to who we are. And what's so strange is that because I've dove into this pool head first, I don't look at the world the same anymore at all. Like I am in the quote unquote paranormal mindset. Because these things absolutely exist, and I look at the UFO stuff that's coming out, the UAP stuff that's coming out every single day, more and more and more and more. And I'm like, this is, what we're coming into right now is a new age of knowledge. And I was thinking to myself today that I truly feel like the U.S. government is going to be in a spot within potentially 6 months, maybe less, to where they have to come clean about extraterrestrial life. And that directly implicates Bigfoot because of the connections. And when our documentary comes out, when the Paranormal Bigfoot comes out, and when it says some of the things it has to say, and if people are paying attention, and we will try and get people to pay attention, some people are going to start connecting some dots on some of this stuff. And people are going to realize that the fact of the matter is there's just science that we don't know yet. And that's nothing to be afraid of. So anyway, sorry, rant over.
Mike, I just saw a photo that you shared here privately to us. Describe what's going on.
So this is an example of the phenomenon of sneaking into my family life. My daughter's in the first grade. On a side note, my daughter's teacher is a huge Bigfoot fanatic. And she found out that we shot this movie. She flipped out. She loves it. But and that's just a side note, but one of Kate's projects was to draw a self-portrait. So she did. So she drew a picture of herself with sunglasses on. One panel of the sunglasses is her, and the sunglasses are huge, prominent. It's the biggest thing in the frame. And on each eye, there is a scene painted or drawn with crayons. One side is her and her cousins jumping on trampolines. The other side is her roasting marshmallows over a fire, and a Bigfoot just kind of low profile over her shoulder, just kind of watching from the distance. So it's something that's on her mind. It's something that she talks to me about a lot, and it sparked a lot of questions and some stories and stuff. And it's just been fun to watch her kind of come along for the ride too. Theoretically, it's just like she's kind of soaking this stuff up while we do. And it's funny, it's kind of like gone through our whole family as well. And you talk about family dynamics, like for instance, last night we're having a family dinner at my mother-in-law's, and we're talking about, for some reason, we're talking about what constitutes a good movie. And my mother-in-law, my wife, and my sister-in-law love a good, happy Hallmark movie, something that ends happy, something that
Amen.
Has no suspense, no mystery.
Mike and I actually made one of those. It's called Bye Guys.
Yeah, we did.
Check it out. It's a Christmas film.
Yeah.
Yes. Sorry,
and
Mike.
It's very much in that vein, but this is totally the opposite. Weird. And, I was bringing up, it's like, there can be some mystery to things that, not every movie has a happy ending. There can be mystery, and not all movies are real. And my mother-in-law comes back with a quip, well, like Bigfoot movies, and I'm like, whoa. I'm like, okay,
burn city.
I'm like, we can go there, and it wasn't meant maliciously at all, but it just popped out. It's just like, oh my gosh, I'm sorry, I said, one of those things, but it's funny. It just kind of goes to show, like, people have opinions, and there's a lot of people out there that aren't totally on board with this stuff. It's a little too much.
Well, we can't help it if those people are lame. I mean,
all right.
Jill
cheers.
does not
Cheers
speak
to
on
that.
behalf of the producer.
Hello.
But you can't.
Yeah.
I think it's important. You know, you need to. You know, we need to understand those people. We need to understand the skeptic mindset when we're doing these things. And you know, I don't want to go so far as to say we're not trying to push an agenda, but it's. I mean, the thing about it is, if you take 2 steps backwards, the whole thing's absurd. It's absurd in the context of what we live in right now. You know, it would have been even more absurd 10 to 20 years ago, but thankfully there's been just a gradual spiritual awakening for a variety of different reasons. I think post 9/11. But the thing is that, you know, you talk about a big hairy creature that's roaming around in the forest, you can get to a point where it gets almost comical, I guess, or cartoonish, you know, and we got the same reaction. I got the same reaction from Eric Bard when we sat down and interviewed him last year at Phenomenon, and he said, Bigfoot. He's like, I don't like Bigfoot. I don't want Bigfoot to be associated with his phenomenon because Bigfoot's kind of big and clumsy and stuff. You know, and you people that think about Bigfoot might think about Harry and the Hendersons, and they think about the things that are in pop culture. You know, and we just know that that's just not the way it is, and which makes it, you know, those types of things make it that much harder for us to try and get the truth out there. It's kind of like the Greys, you know, to a certain extent. Like you know, there's all these like gifs and dolls and bumper stickers and stuff of Greys that are, you know, kind of goofy, you know. So what happens when they show up? Do you take them seriously? I don't know. So yeah, you know, I think the important thing is that we just keep doing what we're doing, and I think we need to be as transparent and honest about it. And we need to listen to people. We need to listen to why they don't believe in Bigfoot. And what's super interesting to me in the conversations I've had with people is that part of the reason they don't think Bigfoot's real is because they're not seeing it on ABC Nightly News. You know, we've had multiple people who are like, well, there's no photos, there's no evidence. And I'm like, well, have you even looked?
But Brett, nobody's listening to ABC Nightly News. Everyone's listening, watching podcasts on YouTube. And I think that's why the conversation's shifting, is that these, you know, these younger voices that really don't care about the old legacy media are letting it all hang out there in a way that just wasn't allowed. I mean, these people are doing what we're doing right now. They're speaking unscripted about things they're passionate about with guests that they like. I think that's don't you think that's part of the reason it's changing?
Yes, big time. I mean, there's a divide between the older people that are used to getting their news, you know, delivered to them on their doorstep every morning,
right?
You know, in the form of a paper kind of a thing. And it's like, if it's not in black and white, it's not true.
Right.
That kind of thing. And so we're transitioning. You know, there's also a huge chunk of society that believes in that when leadership tells you it's true, it's true. You know, never mind that, you know, doesn't matter what party you're affiliated with, where every party has got, you know, political liars that have lied for their entire careers. You know what I mean? And the fact of the matter is the government is lying through their teeth, and the UAP people say that they're committing some pretty terrible crimes by keeping this technology from us. But anyways, that's a different discussion for a different podcast.
Well, I just want to jump in and say, I mean, regardless of whether or not we are making documentaries that approach the subject from a completely like flesh and blood, scientific, biological point of view, or if we're going off into new science and exploring things that fall under this what's called the paranormal umbrella, I guess you could say, we need to be methodical, and we need to give each story the due diligence it deserves, and not just kind of throw the dice and be like, let's run with this and see what happens. I mean, I think just like in everything we do, I mean, and that's where we've had our success, is just really giving people that time to tell their stories. And in those stories, the truth is coming out.
You know, as I mentioned, I'm in the process of moving. This is a really uh, historical area up here. There's, Hurricane Ridge and the Olympic Mountains and a place called, I think it's Blue Ridge Mountain. Um, there's a lot to see and do as far as elevation is concerned. And this is where the Olympic project is. This is where a lot of sightings happen. Rich has had a sighting out this way. Erin, my girlfriend, has had a sighting out here. So we've been looking at this house for like the last week. The other day we go into the house to get the inspection done, and it's an old family style house on an orchard. The guy that used to live in the house, and he lives next door. He has a dump truck business, or a gravel truck, not dump, but rocks in the back of his truck. And he's just down the street, but that's his old house, and we like it. So he comes over because the house is still empty, and there's a camera, and it chimes on his phone, when someone walks by the window. So he's just doing his job. Well, he comes over and introduces himself the first time, and we're over there again, and the thing chimes again while it's getting inspected. So he comes over again. And so, me and Erin meet up with him along with the real estate agent and the inspector, and I'm talking about it, and there's orchard trees everywhere. And, when there's orchard trees, there's got to be a root cellar. Well, this is built in the 40s. So I'm eyeballing this root cellar as my next, podcast place to hang out, my man cellar. I got to come up with a cooler name like Squatch Cellar or something. So I'm talking to this dude who used to live, in the house and had the room next door to this root cellar. And I was like, yeah, I want to put my podcast studio down in the root cellar. And he goes, oh, you listen to podcasts? You do podcasts? And I said, yeah, we have a podcast. I talk about Sasquatch. And the look on his eye was like a kid in a candy store. He goes, all I do is listen to Sasquatch podcasts when I'm driving my truck. And I've grown used to that response, but he hadn't grown used to the fact that there's someone that could talk Bigfoot, on the other side of the fence with him. So we immediately went down the rabbit hole, and he was so into that moment and the possibility that the old house he used to live in would have all these Bigfoot people living in it. And then he went on to tell this Bigfoot story. So here we go. Mike, we'll call him, I probably shouldn't give his last name. So Mike, the next door neighbor, was talking about a place just down the street from where Erin had her initial sighting of something she said was a 10-foot jolly green giant. Really, she said it was a 10-foot tall Sasquatch that was green, covered in moss, jumped across the road. Very bizarre sighting. Turns out that she's not the only one that had a sighting like that. Well, this guy said, yeah, it was close to that area where your girlfriend said she saw that being. And she goes, yeah, just down the way, there was a local story that we all talked about. And it involved a husband and wife that lived out in a portion of land near Joyce, Washington, where periodically the central light would turn off and on at night. It would flick on, it would off. And they thought, well, maybe it's the cats. They had cats, and the cats were flicking the lights on as they were roaming outside. And the wife, I guess, went out there. I hope I'm telling this story right, Mike, and eventually came to the conclusion that it wasn't the cats, it was Bigfoot. So she tried to tell her husband, and the husband, I don't know if he believed her or not, but eventually the wife ended up passing on. And so the husband's at this house alone, and now the lights are doing the same thing again. Well, he's like, gosh, is it the cats, or is it what, my wife said that was out there was Bigfoot? And so he goes out one night to find that there is a Sasquatch underneath the light going just like that to the kitty cats. It was a female Sasquatch luring the kitty cats with like a little kissy noise. Well, according to this guy, that's the same sound that his deceased wife made to bring the cats in. And so this female Sasquatch was, here we go again. I mean, these are all, I'm all familiar tales of them not only mimicking behavior, but maybe even more than that, maybe an appreciation for the fact that the caretaker is now gone and these cats are used to a routine, right? I mean, Jill, Brett, you guys have cats. They do have some kind of routine. They're not totally, just feral. But I thought that was a cool story, and that's literally right next door to me, right near, underneath these orchard trees, and we all know what happens under orchard trees out in the country. Sometimes Bigfoot stuff happens. So, the first house that we were going to look at looked and felt a lot like the Al Moon. It was a converted 2-story garage. And I thought, man, that's the place, right? Like the universe is going to send me there. But it may have been holding on for this property. I don't know. So to be continued on that.
Very cool. That's a great story. That's a great story. I can't believe that it must be meant to be that this Bigfoot guy lives next door.
Yeah. Yeah, he's totally down for the cause.
Awesome.
When I told him about you guys, he goes, "You don't know Rich Germeau, do you?" And I was like, yeah. It's like,
it's a matter of fact.
I was just like,
That's
"You
awesome.
don't know Ron Moorhead, do you?" And I was like, "Oh, you got to watch this doc, dude. Both of these guys are in it."
Yeah.
So he's totally down for the cause. And the last thing I wanted to mention here before we go is that there has been an extended version of the Al Moon Lab, a paranormal experiment, a book I wrote that it was released last month, actually. And I wanted to make sure that it was ready to order, that it was the right version available. It is. It is available. It is a re-release. Things have been rewritten for context and for necessity. And I really have to thank, this is a time to thank Nancy Fry, who selflessly went through every page of that with a mighty big red pen and helped me straighten out some stuff in there that needed to be straightened out. But beyond that, there were some things that I just felt rushed as far as how to verbalize what's going on with these people that we talk about in the doc, including the term extended experiencers, which I thought was just a little bit too wordy. It doesn't really home in, the Sasquatch experience. And I thought, well, since we're edging into such this UFO world, I thought Sasquatch contactees. So that's the new term I'm using for people that are extended experiencers of Sasquatch interaction, is I think Sasquatch contactees of some kind is what we're talking about, because it is kind of this, a little like an esoteric spiritual experience that a lot of these people at the end of the day are kind of describing when they have these constant contacts. So that's changed, but the other thing that's been changed is there is not only more detail to the chapters, but there's also a soundtrack I worked on. And so soundtrack's the wrong word. It's a soundscape. And I wanted to put something cool together that you could drive down an old dirt road and listen to, because that's what I used to do. I used to try to find the best cool soundscapes. Like all I could find was Vangelis by Blade Runner, because that's all I had on cassette tape from the Goodwill, was to go up Old Thurston Road with Vangelis playing. And if I didn't have that, it was like ELO or something. It was anything that was adjacent to Art Bell. And let's be honest, although I never played ABBA. But
you mean you weren't buying his Peruvian pan flute?
Well, I was actually when I was driving my AMC Hornet up the road, I was playing the Peruvian pan flute.
AMC? Did you really have an AMC Hornet?
With one working door, yeah, and I traded it for a TV set. But that's a different story for a different time. Okay. The soundtrack, I hope people like it. It's on a QR code. It's at the back of the book. I don't know if you can necessarily go in and download it from SoundCloud, but I'm sure there's a way you could backdoor it, and maybe Brett could tell me someday how to do that for people that want to backdoor the soundtrack to have it ripped. But do
you have Love on a Real Train by Tangerine Dream on that? You know what I'm talking about?
No, well, if I heard it, I would. Yeah.
Love
Yeah,
on a
you know
Real
what it
Train
is.
by
You know what it
Cinematographer.
is.
It's the montage sequence in Risky Business where Tom Cruise and Rebecca De Mornay
Oh yes, yes,
do the
yes,
nasty
yes.
on the train.
Wait, that wasn't. Was that risky? That was Risky Business.
Risky
Yes.
Business, yeah.
With and Booger makes a cameo, right? That's his
Oh,
best
Yes,
yes.
friend. Yes.
yeah. And the
Whatever
other
happened? Wait, let
one,
pause. Whatever happened to Booger? Because talk
I don't
about
know.
one of my idols. If I could have turned out to be a hero and a loser, it would have been frickin' Booger or John Cusack from Better Off Dead.
Oh,
But
or say anything? Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Totally.
Yeah, he's probably like a high-paid corporate
yeah.
lawyer now
Yeah.
who just
Booger is
runs over people with like a
yeah,
giant Mercedes
yeah.
G-Wagon or
Nice.
something obnoxious.
The other film, or I'm sorry, the other track that everybody should be listening to while they're out squatching at night is Tubular Bells by Mike
Oh, I know
Old,
that.
Oldfield.
Yeah.
It's the score or the track from The Exorcist. So
Yeah.
it'll become very familiar.
I
But
used to have
anyways,
a buddy of mine, Jael Watkins, who would play that on the piano all through my freshman year, and he was just obsessed with the Halloween soundtrack and Tubular Bells, and it was just constant whenever he could find a piano. So I remember
yeah.
it well, and I think maybe Depeche Mode covered that, or there was some 80s synth
Hmm.
band that did something with it. So the soundtrack, the soundscape at the end of Al Moon Lab is reminiscent of some of the stuff that Brett and I are talking about right now because I'm a fan
Yeah.
of old 80s synth. So I hope you enjoy it. Not every sound in there is reminiscent of the sounds from the book. Those are all the real deal. This is more of a soundscape and more of an abstraction of events. So enjoy.
By the
Mike,
way,
yeah, Brett.
I'm looking at Booger right now on
Wait, I need to
IMDb.
sound clip that comment right there forever. Okay, go ahead.
Curtis Armstrong is the name of the actor. He's doing voices. He's a voice on American Dad.
Yeah,
Hmm.
He
okay.
Snot Lonstein, Ellie Weasel, and Snot as assistant. I don't know what that means. I don't watch that show.
I don't either.
He was on Harriet the Spy and
Mm.
Stumptown, and yeah.
We'll have to
Anyways,
check out Booger. Check out, boy, now I have to sound clip myself. Check out all good things from the 80s. There's some stuff coming our way that we can't get into, and we're going to try to talk about it in the next 2 episodes. So tune into these next 2 episodes for sure, because there's some events that we can maybe talk about in the next 2 that we can't talk about now, but there's something big coming, and I'll give you a semi hint. Um, we talked about Jimmy Church and Fade to Black. If you haven't listened to the Brett Eichenberger episode, it'll give you context about what the news is. But we're going to get into it in the next 2 episodes. It's a way forward with a legend. I'll just put it that way. We're paving a path, a legendary path, and it's going to lead to greater things, greater conversations, and it's about damn time. Is that good enough?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Cool.
I think so. I think
Maybe
that
that's
time is
we'll call that episode "It's About Damn Time." So
Ooh.
we're gonna move into to that territory in the next 2 episodes. So tune in. Hey, thanks for joining me, guys, here in my little U-Haul hubble.
yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely. All
Thanks,
right.
Tobe.
It's always
Thanks,
a good
guys.
time.
Good hang.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Good
we
hang,
need a
good
closing
hang.
slogan. Maybe somebody can suggest something like, you know what I mean? If you're, I don't know.
I know. I can't
Art
just say
Bell, what did Art
see
Bell
you in
used to
the.
say at the end of Coast to Coast? See you on the other side.
Well, he would have the guests send them out, and then he would always change it out, right? Like they would get the honor. So let's
Oh,
go
that's
around the
right.
board here. So eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Mike, you get the honor of sending us out. Go.
Oh geez, that's too much pressure.
Oh, Mike.
I'm not an improvisational guy.
All right. Okay. Brett, send us out. Go.
I'm going to send us out by passing the mic to Jill.
Oh my God, you guys are such
Mhm.
psychos. Jill, go.
Okay, so we're wrapping it up, and we will see you on the other side. Tune in next week as we explore the unknown, the mysterious, and all things in between.
This has been a Resonance Production podcast. If you have questions, comments, or suggestions, you can email us at bigfootrevealedpod@gmail.com. Also, if you're just discovering the Flash of Beauty universe, you can watch our documentary on most major streaming platforms.